And we are live. Welcome back to the podcast, kids. It's our 20th podcast.
You know what happens when you turn 20?
What honestly, what does happen when you turn 20, Eric?
You turn 20.
Do you remember your 20th birthday? I imagine it's all a blur for you.
It really is. I remember my 21st. Your 20th birthday sucks ass, to be honest with you, because you can't legally drink. So you still got to wait. Like, you're counting down the days to when you can show your ID to people.
What's going on with your camera? Why does your head only show from the chin up?
That's all you need.
I would ask where your camera was sitting, but
no. It's on my laptop.
There you go.
Yes.
But it's been a monumental week here in the National Basketball Association, Eric. You want to?
Did I get a raise?
No.
Oh no. Wait. Maybe I ate something at this fine place, Baja Fresh.
Are you? Is this our new visual theme? You're ordering from a different takeout place. Baja Fresh is a huge come down from Burger Joy, whatever the hell it was.
Burger Joy. I still have Burger Joy. I am prepared to order from Burger Joy if need be. So apparently, Joe, you're in tune with the black community. I'm just going to ask you straight up. Why Sterling got to be a dick?
Well, I don't know why he has to be a dick, but he is one. Is this news? When was this news? This guy was a dick.
Wait, is he a dick or is he racist?
Well, yeah, both. I mean, how many elements of this are there? There's a lot. This guy is. I don't know. There have been so many good things said about this already that I feel like we sort of have to work to say anything new and interesting, and maybe it's just our job to sort of bring together some of the better things that have been said about it. So, do you want to start, or do you want me to start?
I think everyone knows the Sterling kind of issue, right? Like, they know, like, what happened. So the question isn't kind of like what he did. There have been different perspectives about the Donald Sterling incident, and now the issue kind of is. Everyone's kind of come out. He's been suspended. Not even suspended. He's been banned for life.
He's been Pete Rosed.
Life. And so now the issue is, he's going to be forced to sell the team, probably. There's been a lot of people that have come out and said this isn't news. Number one, the great Bomani Jones piece talked glowingly about the fact of his kind of like discrimination, housing discrimination, which has been going on, I guess, in the news since, 2003?
Yeah, Bomani Jones wrote about it in 2006.
I'm sorry. But the lawsuit started in 2003.
Yes.
And I guess, kind of fruition in 2006 when we kind of heard about everything. But, yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, there have been a couple good things said about this. Bomani Jones wrote about it in 2006. If you haven't heard the thing that he did about it on the Dan Le Batard show, you should. It's a great piece. It's a great. Not only is it a great discussion of the work that he did on it back in 2006, but it's a nice piece of perspective where he talks about how people got really upset about this particular instance of Sterling saying stuff out loud, but they weren't nearly as upset about the housing discrimination stuff that Sterling was involved in, which had a much broader effect on people's lives. Which
is probably much more racist.
Well,
you're going to say it in the tape, I suppose.
Well, yeah, and he said it's not just a question of how racist it is; it's a question of the material impact that sort of behavior had on people. There's Jay Smoove actually sort of came out with another thing that was pretty good on this, where his question was, why are people so upset about racist speech and not about racist behavior? Bomani Jones's piece sort of documents the material impact of that racist behavior and talks about why it is that the media in particular was so upset about or so focused on the racist speech and not so focused on the racist behavior that was going on for many, many years, well documented, not just with the housing discrimination, but the allegations against Sterling of the racial discrimination against employees, including the great Elgin Baylor and many other people who were working for not only the Clippers, but the other people who were involved in Sterling's various different real estate enterprises. And by the way, the other lost piece of this, which I think Progress did a piece on, and Bomani Jones actually talked about as well, is the sexism that there was a bunch of discussion of that's well documented that Sterling was also involved in the sexual harassment against his employees and et cetera. But what was great about Bomani Jones's piece was he was talking about how the material impact of what Sterling was doing with the housing discrimination stuff is that it cost people their lives, it ruined their lives, and the media was incredibly slow to focus on that in spite of the fact that there were people writing about it. Not just Bomani Jones. Actually, Jemele Hill talked about that a little bit today on the radio. And one of the better things that I've seen her do, I've actually thought she's done much better job since they got her off of the awful First Take show and had her do much better stuff on ESPN. She was talking about the work that she did about a year after Bomani Jones did it on that same issue with Donald Sterling. And so it's been well documented that he's been doing this stuff for a long time and has been engaged in behavior that is much more impactful on people's lives, racist behavior that is much more impactful on people's lives in a negative way. So that's been great stuff. Jay Smooth's piece was pretty good, and there's been a lot of other stuff that's come out and said essentially not in any way to really say that what Commissioner Silver did was bad or wrong, because I think he did as much as he could.
I think he did all he could.
He did all he could within his legal power, but where was the media? Where was the NBA on this issue for so many years that this guy's been doing stuff that's racist? And so I have some stuff to say about that, but Eric, I'd kind of like to hear what you have to say about that as well.
There's a couple things. The backstory. I think we kind of all agree with Bomani Jones' initial premise, which is he didn't do a good enough job of keeping his mistress in check. And, that's kind of like slang for, him and his woman had an argument. It sounds more so like, Sterling did not want his wife, or I'm sorry, not wife, girlfriend, dating black men. They were having kind of a lover's quarrel, so to speak. And, the racist stuff verbiage comes out from that. I have not heard the Jay Smooth piece or read the Jay Smooth piece. I have heard Jemele Hill and read and heard kind of what Bomani Jones has said. I kind of don't get this argument in some ways, because it seems like you are now asking the question because of the tape. You are now asking the question of where was the NBA in 2006? Well, Bomani Jones, where were you in 2008? I don't remember Bomani Jones talking about this very much until this tape comes out. Nor did I hear Jemele Hill talk about it. And I understand it's interesting to question where the NBA and the owners were. I'm not sure where that gets us, but I haven't also thought this through on a global scale. He sounds like someone who was pointing out a huge problem that the NBA had by not actually, dealing with actual racism that Donald Sterling was engaged in. We had talked about this earlier, and I was kind of like, the question is now, what is the alt? What is the purpose of saying I wrote a piece back in 2006 that documented that? Where was everyone else? Even Bomani Jones says his own, not producers, what's the word I'm looking for, publishers of the article didn't do a good enough job of pushing it. But, in 2009 and 10, I don't remember anybody in the media, specifically people like Bomani Jones and Jemele Hill, talking about the Clippers. The Clippers weren't relevant enough to talk about, so the media chose not to talk about them. So, those individuals who have found unique power, i.e. found unique, information about someone who is engaging actively in racism, have a job to do due diligence to continue to expose it. It seems like Bomani Jones and Jemele Hill kind of stopped for a period of time because the Clippers weren't relevant, and so maybe that meant the story wasn't relevant. I'm not sure, but I don't get that perspective of it. I think what happened is something that we should evaluate and look at. Donald Sterling said something that was blatantly offensive to a lot of people, especially a lot of players in the NBA who were ready to start boycotting immediately, and Adam Silver did what he should have done. And that should be commended because he didn't have to do that. He should have said and suspend him indefinitely through the end of the playoffs, and then we'll reevaluate. No, he banned him for life. He fined him the maximum amount of money. He did everything he could under the Constitution. And I will preface this by saying I have not heard everything that Bomani Jones and Jamel Hill have said on this subject. Joe, if you have and you want to fill me in on some things, that's perfectly fine. But I thought it was weird that Bomani Jones, the critique of it, the beginning part of what he did was outstanding, and then it went to this place of, where was the NBA? Where was the media? Where were you, Bomani Jones?
Here's what I would say about that. I mean, he was there in 2006. He's been talking about this for a while. I think if you read what he wrote on Twitter after the piece went viral, it's fairly helpful, because afterwards on Twitter, he talks about this stuff all the time. If you listen to Bomani Jones on a regular basis, if you listen to the stuff that he does on his own podcast, if you read him on Twitter, you know that race is a central subject for him. And it's something that he actually takes a ton of heat from people for talking about. There are a lot of people who are like, "Oh, you make everything about race," and I think actually he does a really, really good job of responding to that on a regular basis, in an even-handed way, and a funny way, and a really
very intelligent way, to be honest.
Yeah, I was going to say actually a sort of eloquent way most of the time. That's a smart guy. But one of the things he said after that is he said he didn't want it to come off sounding, after it went viral, because one of the reasons I say that he talks about this so much is that, so often he says things and not that many people notice other than the people that follow him on Twitter or that listen to the radio show or whatever. And so then this thing that he says on the Le Batard show goes viral, I think because it's so good and because Sterling's getting so much traction on the air. And so then he comes out and he says, look, on Twitter, he says, look, I don't want it to come off sounding like I'm saying I told you so. That's the main point of what I said on Le Batard. He says, that's part of what I'm saying, but what I'm really saying is not that it's even important what I did in 2006 or even what I've done since then. What I'm saying is, in the future, when we see these things happening with, whether it's an owner, whether it's, somebody that's in sports that's important, that we ought to be focusing on these issues of people's actions that are racist, and we ought to be paying more attention to them. It's not a question of, looking at the past and saying, oh, what should have happened, what did happen, what didn't happen. It's to be saying, the next time that one of us speaks out and says, hey, look what's going on, that we don't just say, oh, well, that's not juicy enough, that's not interesting enough. Because let's face it, part of the reason why this went viral with Sterling in the first place is it's his open mistress that records the call, and it's what people are referring to as this smoking gun conversation, and he says stuff that's so provocative and it's so out loud, but when it takes a minute of thought for you to go, hey, this is housing access issues, that it's less interesting. And I guess what I would say about that is this: I think it's the NBA owners should have put more thought into this, but they have a certain amount of restriction in terms of their initial action, because every single time that Sterling was involved in legal action, he either won in the case of Elgin Baylor, or he settled, and part of the terms of the settlement were a non-admission of guilt, which is one of the worst things about these kinds of legal settlements. Is that the facts of the case are suppressed, and no one admits guilt, which is one of the ways that corporations and people that are wrongdoers are allowed to keep doing the awful stuff that they do. And they basically pay people off so that they don't have to admit guilt and they don't have to ever get any of the dirty laundry out in the air of the public. So there's a certain degree to which the NBA is constrained, but once there's a public outcry, as happened in this instance, then and then Silver actually said this at the press conference. He said, well, now it's public. And somebody said, well, isn't this a private conversation? He said, yeah, well, now it's public. So I think it's the media's job to, when it's appropriate, foster that public outcry. And
I agree.
And that's what they should be doing in the future. At this point, it doesn't matter for us to sit around and talk about their failures, although it's important for us to note them, right? But it's to say as we go forward, they should be responsible. And that's one of the reasons why I did like some of these articles that are coming out now that say, okay, what's happening now that we ought to be looking at? Well, one of the things is freaking Dan Snyder. It's time. It's time to stop saying Redskins. It's time for us to stop having an NFL franchise whose name is an ethnic slur. and that doesn't have the exact same kind of material impact as what Sterling's doing, but there are other people in sports that the media is just not doing a good job of exposing their activity, exposing what's going on, and I think that's what we should be focusing on. I thought that was a good point that he's making.
I think the point that he makes, I think, is fine. I think the way it did come across did seem kind of like I told you so-ish.
Yeah.
You know, and intended or unintended. I will say, you know, Bomani Jones is infinitely more eloquent at probably discussing this issue than I will be, given my lifetime. But I feel like now that we know what he's done on the NBA side, we should now be calling on people to investigate and look into what he is doing in terms of housing discrimination, especially if it is still ongoing. You know, we should remain vigilant on Sterling, even though he is only one person. We should, you know, kind of make an example out of him that this country won't tolerate these kind of people anymore. These kind of individuals who buy their way into situations and buy their way out of situations because they have the money to do so. Even though there was a settlement, there's probably still racial discrimination that is kind of going on as well. So we should remain quite vigilant. And I don't want to delve too much to the social aspect. You touched on the fact that it's time for the Redskins name to go. I think we both understand why that doesn't gain nearly as much traction than the Sterling thing because of the individuals that are involved, even though both of them are racist terms that people are context and words and Redskins is all kind of the same. I do want to touch on an interesting point. Silver thinks that he'll get a 29-0 vote to oust Sterling. Mark Cuban said that he probably would not vote him out, although I think he's kind of recanted later because of the way it came out. But I thought Cuban made a very, very good point in saying that if we are going to look into people's private lives to kind of determine whether or not they should be owners, you know, that's probably not a good idea. I think that makes some sense, but I feel like in the case of like Donald Sterling, and let me say it, you know, I'm very sorry to hear the passing of his son that recently came out, I think right before we did our podcast. You know, people like Sterling have to go. Like, there's no place for them.
And I think it's while I sort of appreciate the general vein of what Cuban's trying to say, the public-private distinction is very sketchy. And if you listen to the full context of what Cuban originally said, he said.
I'm sorry. I don't mean to cut you off, but I do want to say just really quickly. The public-private distinction is part of the reason why, to support your argument about Bomani Jones, while the Bomani Jones Jemele Hill article didn't gain traction, because everything got sealed away in the private, and that it wasn't exposed in the public. That is what Silver is saying when he says, "Well, now it's public. We now everyone is aware of it, as opposed to maybe a local LA TV show or a news station talking about it, and like Bomani Jones, who is not Bomani Jones now." So, but I think that Cuban has a point, but I think the public-private distinction is what you do in private, especially if it involves individuals who you are, you know, being discriminatory against. I think that needs to come out, and you should be dealt with in the most harshest way.
Well, and if you listen to the context of what Cuban said, he said, well, you know, if it was somebody that worked for me in one of my companies and I found out that they thought that, I would fire them. Mm-hmm. And he said, but that's because I control that company. Well, the analogy to the NBA is actually the same thing. The NBA is a private organization. It's not a public organization, right? So in a sense, the owners are Mark Cuban in that analogy, right? And so when they find out that one of their own thinks that way, they can fire that person. So this whole public-private distinction breaks down, and especially breaks down because Sterling manages his personal affairs in such a way that he can't keep his own racism out of the public eye. And that's one of the things that confuses me about Cuban, because I'd always thought that he was someone who understands the concept of public relations really well. In fact, I use an example. I use one of his examples when I talk about public relations in my media literacy classes of the time when he was complaining about the officiating in the NBA after a game when he was a relatively new owner, and he said they ought to pay the officials year-round because it's hard to be an NBA official. It's a hard job. It's not like being the manager of a Dairy Queen.
Right.
And then predictably, Dairy Queen complained loudly that he had insulted them. And they said, "Oh, if you think this is if you think this is such an easy job, you should come down and manage a Dairy Queen for a day." And then Cuban did. Like, he went down to a Dallas Dairy Queen and he publicly showed up. And I use that as and he got all this great press for it, and I use that as an example of a smart act of public relations. Well, Donald Sterling has destroyed the public relations of the NBA. Right? And by the way, this apparently all came out because his estranged wife is suing his public mistress, who, oh, by the way, thank you, Bomani Jones, his public mistress appears to be in heavy association with Bishop Don Juan, for all of y'all who know who Bishop Don Juan is.
Let's take a second to think about this for a second. Why wasn't Bishop Don Juan at the games?
Yeah.
Just think about that for a minute. If you really don't want black people at your games, she just should have brought Bishop just one time for the folks.
Just one time.
Just one time. That's all I need.
And by the way, apparently in reaction to the public outing of the fact that she's associated with Bishop Don Juan, Snoop Dogg sounded out and said that he had purchased the services of this young lady before she was associated with Mr. Sterling. So it just gets worse. It just gets worse. And
I love Ryan.
So, this is the bed that Mr. Sterling has literally made for himself of his own choosing, and his estranged wife is suing the mistress. So the mistress decides to get money out of Sterling by recording their conversations, right? So this is the mess that he has made for himself, and because of that, it's a public relations issue for the NBA. Now, here's what I think is important about this. Because of that, I think the NBA owners are now going to have the opportunity, and Silver basically said this in the press conference, they're going to have the opportunity to sort of make up for their legal inability or ethical oversight of the past. And they're going to have the ability to take all of his prior behavior into consideration when they vote. And I think Silver called their bluff, and it's going to be 29-0. Because that vote count is going to get out, and you don't want to be the one or the two.
No. You do not want to be the squirrel in that vote.
No.
Let me say that there's two important things that people need to
Shout out to John Fritsch. Love you. Director of the NDT.
Let me say this, though. This is very, very important. I'm actually going to be speaking directly to African Americans, minorities in general. Let me tell you the argument you should not make. You should not make the argument that Donald Sterling should not get a dime from selling the Clippers. No one can take that away from him. The NBA can't take it away from him. He rightfully bought that team. When he has to sell the team, he should get the profits for the team. That is what he gets. The money is already made. You are not going to. There's nothing you can do structurally about that. Rage without context or a concept is just rage. It is infinite, blind rage that does nothing. He is going to make his money. There's nothing we can do about that. But they have taken away his privilege of essentially being famous and being a part of an exclusive club. He can never own a team. He probably can't go into another arena. You do not want to be the city or the ownership group or anyone that has Daniel Snyder, Donald Sterling as the owner of that team. That was for Stephen Hyde. So, there are a lot of African Americans that are saying that we should do a lot of different things without any real foresight. Have foresight, have concept, have understanding of the situation. Donald Sterling is going to make millions off the sale of this team. Now, if Donald Sterling is smart, he'll go away. He'll sell the team, he'll be fine. I think the issue that's going to arise, Joe, and I've heard no one talk about this, the way the rule breaks down, Donald Sterling controls the way in which the sale goes down, which means he could take forever to sell the team if he doesn't get, let's say, a price that he wants, right? I think the Clippers are worth $750 million. Let's say someone offers him $850 million, and he could just simply go, I think this team is worth $1.1 billion. And until I get that, I won't sell the team. And I'm curious to know what the response or the how they will resolve that goes.
Yeah, I don't know what the minutia of that is, and that's a level of legal analysis that I haven't heard. I do know from the various different people that I've heard from so far that there's a specific timeline that I believe has already been invoked. When Silver said that he's going to ask for the team to be forcibly sold. I believe that triggers a constitutional timeline that's actually fairly quick. That happens within, there's a certain matter of days that has to pass by where the board of directors of the NBA, which is basically all the owners of the NBA, they have to basically meet to have a hearing, and then there's a certain number of days after which that occurs where a decision has to be reached. And then, we'll see what happens after that. Now, I have not heard anyone talk about exactly what happens at that point and what the league's powers are vis-a-vis moving the sale along. This is going to be a real interesting legal ground because, as far as I know, this is unprecedented in terms of the NBA's constitution. I would be a little surprised if Donald Sterling doesn't try to have an antitrust suit brought, although my understanding is that has very little chance of success.
No, Roger Cossack was actually pretty good on this. He said he does not have any legal ground to really stand on. Joe, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. He doesn't have much legal ground to stand on because of antitrust, and because I think it forces mediation more than it forces the legal suit. And when he buys the team, he buys into the bylaws and the kind of constitution of the NBA. So.
Right. Well, the Constitution of the NBA basically forces owners who have a complaint to accept arbitration rather than litigation.
Right.
And their only way out of that, my understanding is to basically challenge the legitimacy of the league via antitrust. I think that their ability to do that in this instance is going to be limited. And but the question is, how long does that draw the process out? And then I think I think that's a really smart question of how long can he draw this out with the sale of the league, and who gets to control the sale of the league? I don't know.
But go ahead. I'm sorry.
I do think one thing that's really interesting is that it's entirely possible that there will be another black majority owner as a result of this. Or perhaps a series of black owners that team together to be a majority owner.
Floyd Mayweather and Roger Ellaby?
I don't know about Floyd Mayweather, but that there could be another black owner that results from this who basically ride into LA as saving heroes. And that would be a very interesting outcome.
You know what I want? You know what I really want?
What's that?
I want a black female to own a team.
That would be fantastic.
I want a black.
Who has the money for that?
Oprah. I think.
Does she really though? Does she really?
I feel like she does.
I feel like that. I can only ever hear Chris Rock's joke about the difference between wealth and richness.
Sure.
Where he says there's if Bill Gates woke up tomorrow with Oprah's money, that he'd jump out a window and slit his throat on the way down.
Probably.
But I don't really know what her wealth is comparatively in terms of the ability to buy that team.
Hold on, let me check. Let's just check out Oprah's net worth.
I don't know that Oprah has any interest at all in buying the Clippers.
I think she actually, she said she would be interested in joining. The New York Daily News says that she's interested in joining Music Mobile, David Geffen, and
David said he wants in, which means they should definitely not let him in. He destroys everything he touches.
No, this time. But Oprah apparently is worth $2.9 billion.
Well, that's a chunk of change.
I mean, it's more than I got. I don't know about you, Joe.
It's more than I can take out of my bank account at any one time, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah,
that'd be fantastic. That'd be fantastic. But it would be. I think it's a really interesting prospect that out of this come you could get another black major sports team owner or ownership group.
It doesn't even have to be black. Minority is fine for me, but no.
But think about that. Think about that combination. And that as a prospect of the result of this.
I will probably, even though we're probably politically opposed to one another, but Condoleezza Rice, who is very, very big into sports, wanted to be, I think, the commissioner of the NCAA or whatever that title is. Someone that A, knows about sports would obviously be important. I don't know what Oprah knows about sports, but B, like a female owner would be awesome.
Yeah.
You know,
That'd be fantastic. I don't know. Like I said, I'm not sure who else is out there, but it'll be really interesting to see who comes calling and to see if the league does have power in this instance, how it exerts that power. Silver was very cagey on that subject when he was asked about it at the press conference. All right, well, we'll probably end up talking about this a lot more as the process moves forward. I thought it was interesting to have LeBron admit the other day that that he at least and the players in general are aware that this process is not going to be finished overnight.
Right.
But in the meantime, I think there are playoff games going on in the NBA.
Actually,
is that right?
Before we get to playoff games, I do want to applaud the NBA players, especially the Clippers, who handled this in some of the most professional way you could. You had people calling for them to, boycott the games, give back their paychecks, some irrational things like, I'm just going to quit and walk away. I can live off sponsorship. Let me just be honest with you people. Chris Paul and Blake Griffin maybe can get by a few months or so on their sponsorship deals. They cannot get by without the contracts that they have with the NBA, and it will be foolish for them to just give up their contracts with the NBA just because you don't like your owner. I'm sure I will not say the company that I'm with. I probably may not like my owner, but I do know that I have my mortgages due very soon, so I need that paycheck until I find something different. I thought they handled it well. I thought LeBron James, who every time there's a social issue, LeBron is very, very direct about his response. Like Zimmerman, and then there was this. LeBron James is very there's no place for that. And when the most powerful, famous player in the NBA says that, no matter who you are as an owner, you better listen, because the last thing you want to do is drive away those kind of people. But I thought the NBA players handled it great. I thought Doc Rivers was outstanding.
Yes.
For the Atlanta Hawk, and handled it in a way because Doc
is Doc Rivers anything other than classy, by the way? I mean, that guy is awesome. And by the way, for anyone that is wanting to talk trash about the Clippers players selling out or anything else, you should know that
stupid as fuck.
As far as Kevin Johnson is concerned, they basically did threaten to walk out.
Yes.
That they threatened through Kevin Johnson. They threatened the commissioner that they would walk out.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't threaten to walk out for the first game, but they threatened that they would walk out for future games, and there is strong indication that is one of the reasons why he made the call to pressure for the sale of the team. So everybody always wants people to come out and scream in public as loud as possible, but it's the things that happen behind the scenes that you are not aware of that are often the most effective techniques, and that's why I get frustrated with people that want everybody to be doing everything as loudly as possible, because it's satisfactory for us as the fans. What you don't know is that often the stuff that's actually effective is going on where you can't see it, and the fact that you can't see it doesn't mean it's not happening and doesn't mean it's not important.
Irrational dribble to say that the players have sold out. You have no concept of number one, how business works, but how to wield true power. It is one thing to walk out and I'm not going to take my paycheck anymore. It's another thing to have the people who make the owners money say, yeah, we're not going to play anymore, and see how long that lasts during the playoffs.
Yep. Well, and just one more thing about that too is that the players that are making huge amounts of money, like Chris Paul and Blake Griffin, especially people like Chris Paul. I'm not as familiar with Blake Griffin, but people like Chris Paul aren't just making money and turning around and spending that money on lots of cars. Mm. Those people are engines of wealth production for not just themselves and not just their families, but whole communities of people and charitable organizations. And it's amazing how many people benefit from them going out and playing basketball.
Yes.
Right. And so when you say, oh, they should stop making money, you're really saying that whole community of people who benefit from their work should stop benefiting, and in some cases, become unemployed. And that's true of a lot of professional athletes. So when you're like, oh, that person shouldn't have a job, you're really making a much broader statement that most people just don't appreciate the breadth of the impact of the statement that they are making. And like I said, apparently there was a lot of pressure going on. No one's going to come out and say it, but that's definitely the subtext of what Kevin Johnson was talking about on the radio today. So think twice.
Yeah. And, as I respond back to Devin, who says he doesn't care about individual acts of racism, which is a stupid statement to say the least. You know, I think what you said, I think you said it quite eloquently. And that kind of point that just got made on a Facebook post is important. Individual acts of racism are bad, right? Like, you know, you can't have individual acts of racism. You know, you can't have institutional racism without individuals acting racist in those institutions. A gun by itself doesn't kill anyone. The person that pulls the trigger on the gun is the person that kills someone. So, you know, it's about being diligent in not only individual acts of racism, but when we shine the light on institutional racism, that we need to continue to shine that light and not just wait for it to be juicy.
No, that's true. And you know, I'm all for the fight against institutional racism. It is hard to do that without talking about individual acts of racism, but, and I understand that there are potential trade-offs, but it's all well and good to say institutional, you know, individual acts of racism aren't important until you are the target of those acts.
Right.
And, you know, again, this goes back to Bomani's point about the material impact of you know, the Clipper owners' housing discrimination being much more materially important than what he said to his you know, hired woman. But
right.
You know, that we've already dealt with that issue. So playoffs.
Ooh, Burger Joy.
So Eric, if I'd have told you that in the
we're going straight to it.
Yes.
Oh, whoa! I put it down.
If I'd have told you that if in the first round of the playoffs there were going to be two series that were over quick, one 4-0, the other one 4-1, which two series would you have said those were going to be?
All right, hold on. Well, the first one is easy. That would have been Miami and Charlotte.
Yes. I would have guessed that one too. Would you ever have guessed that the other one?
Wait. I'm thinking of all the who's in the West. None of the West would have been 4-1. I don't think. You probably would have said the Pacers Hawks. Like, honestly, you would have.
I mean, that would have come to mind.
Yeah.
But would you ever have said Bulls Wizards and it would have been the Wizards?
I thought the Wizards had a good chance. I didn't think it was 4-1.
But even Stephen Height would not have said that.
No one thought 4-1.
No.
No. You know what? No. I think there was one person that said this would be over quick. And ironically, what's the guy that's on the Stephen? I think the guy from the Scott Van Pelt show said it was going to be over quick.
Russillo?
Yeah, Russillo had to out like 5 or 6.
I hate to use this phrase, but he is a student of the game. He said the Wizards would kill them quickly.
Yes, he did.
Wow.
Like he said.
That's
I
strong.
think that is his exact words or something to that effect. But you know, the Bulls when the playoffs started before the pairings were out, so to speak, I thought the Pacers would lose to the Bulls in the semifinals because I think we all believed that the Bulls defense would, get them to a position. I also thought they would play Brooklyn in round 1, and that materialized. Here's what happened: the pairings broke in a way where it was like devastating for every higher seed. Toronto got Brooklyn instead of the Wizards, which probably is a better matchup for them. The Bulls ended up with the Wizards, who I don't think they played well against at all season. And let's just say this now. Nene ate Joakim Noah's lunch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where's all the Joakim Noah MVP chanting now?
Nowhere. Listen. The one thing you can't do is during the series in which you win the Defensive Player of the Year is you get embarrassed.
Yeah, you just don't show up.
Like, there was nothing. It was like the name was like, wait, you're not very good. And I've said this for a while. I don't think Joakim Noah is that good. I think he's an overhyped kind of energy guy, but he's got a lot of heart and determination.
I mean, but you can't argue the stats, though. Like, I mean, he has been statistically productive.
That's fine.
I don't like him either.
Listen.
Okay? Like, I don't like him either.
No. I'm not – listen, what other people could you give the Defensive Player of the Year to? I don't know. So – Joakim Noah gets it by way of probably default. Who cares? But structurally, that team is not very good in terms of offensive talent, especially with Monroe.
How smart do the Heat look right now for intentionally losing those last couple of games?
No. the Heat don't look brilliant because had they got the 1 seed, they're a worse matchup for the Hawks than the Hawks are for the Pacers.
Oh yeah. Well, they
will play.
Yeah, obviously.
They will play the Wizards. They probably wouldn't get Brooklyn in the second round.
But the Bobcats would not have been nearly as difficult of a matchup for the Pacers, though.
Yeah,
not nearly. Right. So this is so smart.
Hold on. So Toronto won Game 5, 115 to 113. So they now have a 3-2 series lead. I talked about this to a Wizards fan. Do you understand that the Heat's road to the NBA Finals could go through Toronto, Atlanta, or Washington?
Yes.
The bracket broke.
I mean,
badly.
That's
seriously.
Exactly what happened.
It's like people got pulled up to hit Callum. It's not pretty. Listen, when you look, I'm a big believer in the NBA.
That is a serious possibility. And even if that doesn't happen, their path's going to go Brooklyn and then Washington or Atlanta.
Possibly. We haven't gotten that far yet. But,
I mean, honestly, those are the only two possibilities.
No. Well, hold on. Let's have this conversation now. All right. So before the playoffs, I think you said Indiana in 6. Am I right?
I said Indiana in 7.
Okay, so we both said Indiana in 7.
Yeah.
We both thought that they would win 3 games, just not in this fashion.
Yeah.
This series looks like it's over. The Pacers look defeated. The Hawks don't look very rattled.
No.
And it's like every move, I cannot pronounce the coach's name, let's call him Bud. Every move that Bud makes pays off. Now, the one critical problem that the Hawks have is in crunch time, you need a guy that can get his own shot. They don't have that, which is the reason why a 30-point lead.
Lack of talent.
No. I don't want to say it's a lack of talent.
No. But it's the lack of playmakers.
Yeah. It's still a lack of a star, right?
Yes.
Horford would not have solved this problem. Horford would, probably
he gives us better team offense. He gives us a lot. He doesn't solve that. But he gives us better playmaking possibilities, which might solve this problem in late games. But you're right.
He can't get his own shot off the dribble.
True. It's true.
It's one of the reasons why they lost Game 4 is because generally, no matter how great your play is, you're not going to get a foul call. You're not going to get kind of some of the things you normally get in the game, but sometimes you just need someone to get the ball in their hands that can make a shot. I don't know what to make of the Pacers. But when I saw the pairing that broke, and I'm saying pairing kids because me and Joe Bellin both do debate, pairing means the playoff bracket. When I saw the playoff bracket, this is what you saw. The Miami Heat 4-0 or 3-0, whatever, against Charlotte. I figured they would win. I think Toronto had a winning record against Brooklyn. That's clearly right now a bad matchup for Brooklyn. The Wizards throttled the Bulls throughout the season, and they throttled them in the playoffs. And then when you went to Atlanta and the Pacers, you went, wait a minute, that series was tied 2-2? And then the last thing you remember is the Hawks winning by like 30 or 40 on the Pacers' home floor at the end of the season.
Well, and it's like I told Cyrus, I'm not a big believer in regular season matchups determining playoff matchups, but the Hawks are a team that's getting better as the season goes on, and the Pacers are getting worse as the season goes on. I like the Hawks. I'll tell you what, I really like the Hawks coach right now.
I think everyone really likes the Hawks coach. That guy.
I haven't been able to. I literally have not been able to say that since Fratello.
What, you didn't like Lenny Wilkens or Mike Woodson?
No, oh my God. First of all, I like Mike Woodson better than Lenny Wilkens, and I thought Mike Woodson was one of the most schizophrenic offensive coaches I ever saw. Oh, Lenny Wilkens is terrible. Don't even defend him.
I like Lenny. He's a good guy.
Oh, stop. It's awful.
Us light-skinned brothers stick together.
Yeah, just roll with that.
Yep, sure did.
Yeah.
But seriously, this is what you want if you're the Atlanta Hawks. The Atlanta Hawks should not go back to Indiana. They should jump on the Pacers. They're already probably fragile. They now get. I thought the game was going to be today. They get an extra day to hear about how bad they are. Paul George's house got broken into, and they didn't even steal anything but his All-Star ring.
His All-Star ring. It's so cold.
And here's the thing. During the game, some guy is yelling, "You're like not an all-star. Like stop traveling."
They got to get film on that guy, right? Like that's a CSI move right there. That's a CSI plot. Like, we need to film on that guy. Guy's clearly guilty.
Listen, there are matchup nightmares across the board for Indiana because Indiana did what NFL teams do, but no one followed Indiana. Indiana said, we need to beat the Heat. That is all we care about. And our team is constructed with a bunch of bigs, physical guys who can defend the paint or defend against Wade and LeBron, make them shoot jump shots, funnel them to Hibbert. But the league didn't follow. And the Hawks are quicker at every position from 1 to 5. And the Pacers, we have to play the rest of the league before we play the Heat?
Yeah, and then Hibbert disappeared in a puff of smoke.
I think something is going on with Hibbert.
Obviously, but my God.
What? I don't know, but something.
How you're that big and that good and you don't do anything.
But he's that big and that good, but he's slow.
But he is nothing. Nothing. No rebounds. How do you not get a rebound?
But the Hawks.
They hang out near the basket.
This is what
Bud up.
This is what Bud does.
You need some pine tar. Where's that picture?
No.
You got to get some pine tar.
No. The Hawks, the starting lineup is 5 guys that can make a 3. He can't sit in the middle, which means if they blow past the first line of defense, Hibbert has to make a decision. Does he get to the rim or does he get out to the shooter? And that's the last thing Hibbert needs to do. And then when they go to Scola, God bless the guy, but he's not the Scola that was in the Olympics years ago.
I was shocked that guy was still in the league. That's another one of those he's still in the league moments.
Oh, I actually knew he was in the league. Yeah, Scola's still going to hang around. But I feel like this game with Atlanta goes one of 2 ways. I believe that the Hawks jump on them with a frantic crowd. And, yes, I said frantic because unless the Hawks are playing like the Heat, the Bulls, New York teams, or L.A., fans will show out in droves for these kind of games.
Yeah, yes. Atlanta sports fans desperately want a winning team to root for. All y'all that think Atlanta's a bad sports town can kiss my whole ass.
Yes. But this game is either going to start off with Atlanta jumping out to a big run and Indiana just saying, fuck it, we're done with the season. Or the game will be close throughout and it's going to come down to Paul George.
Yep.
But I honestly, I kind of think Indiana wins to force the Game 7 because I think they played desperate. But the first 5 minutes of that game will let you know mentally where they are.
The biggest concern, if you're a Hawks fan, is that the fundamental reason the Pacers have been playing so poorly is a lack of rest. And these extra days of rest. No, I didn't say that. I said that is if you are a Hawks fan, that's what you have to worry about. You have to worry about the possibility that and this is a very popular theory right now, that the reason the Pacers are playing poorly is they've gotten insufficient rest throughout the season, and these extra days of rest are going to energize them, and that you're going to see a much better team. Now, I'm not sure that the evidence supports that theory.
I don't see a team that looks tired. I see a team that looks mentally tired. I think what Indiana needed was to go up on the Hawks and sweep them or beat them in 5 games to kind of get some confidence that they are a number 1 seed. And the worst thing happened game 1, they got their ass whooped. And then all of a sudden doubt creeped in. And the worst thing you want to do is to be sitting around your hotel room hearing ESPN, which right now, ironically, the Pacers should thank their lucky stars for Donald Sterling.
Yes, they should.
If there was no Donald Sterling,
knocked him off the front page, so to speak.
They would be getting drilled by the national media right now. So if you're the Pacers, you're thankful that no one is – you're actually thankful you're not at home. You're on the road, away from the media spotlight, news cameras. Of course, you get it at practice, wherever they're practicing at.
All right. All right, I'm gonna call time on this because we just have to talk about something that's happening in the West. Let's suppose that some things happen here, and the following things occur, all of which would simply continue the trends of the status quo.
Okay, hold on, one quick second.
Yeah.
Hey, Winston from Florida State, what the fuck?
Dude,
Dude.
What about this surprises you, though? What we know about this guy?
Never mind. Continue.
All right. All continuations of the status quo. Okay.
Okay. All right.
The following teams win their series in the first round.
All right.
And these are all teams that are ahead 3 games in the series.
All right.
San Antonio, Memphis, the Clippers, and Portland.
Okay.
That means San Antonio's path to the title is Portland, and then either the Clippers or Memphis.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I think the Clippers may pose some problems for San Antonio, but Oklahoma City could be gone in the first round.
Listen, that team is headed for a nuclear meltdown unlike anything you've ever seen. That team is going to have to make a real big decision about whether or not Westbrook and Durant can coexist. And not only that, but you blew up a team that made it to the finals that has, what's his name?
Harden.
And no one has kind of stepped up in place of Harden.
And the coach can't adjust. No. I mean, right now Houston is 15 points up on Portland in Game 5. But even if Houston wins that game, Portland still they got to come back and win 2 more.
No, they've got to win 3.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If Houston stays ahead and wins this game, they'll have to win 2. They'll have to win 3 games in a row to win that series, which I don't see happening. So I think Portland's going to win that series. I think the Clippers may very well ride the high to win their series.
Could you imagine? Go ahead.
I said I thought that the Clippers and San Antonio would be a fascinating Western Conference final. We may get that final.
Yeah, we might get that final. Memphis is a gritty team, and they're showing it right now against OKC. But
do you like a Clippers Heat final?
You know what? You just buried the lead. Imagine, because right now everyone is probably rooting for the Clippers because of what they went through, and you know people love to hate the Heat. That is the perfect kind of love them, hate them final.
David Goliath, baby.
You would ever see. But think about this for a second. What are the Clippers? They're the 3rd seed, so they'll play Memphis. Portland plays
San Antonio.
Okay, so I would like to think San Antonio can get past Portland.
Yes.
But watching this series, I'm not sure.
San Antonio just has matchup problems against Dallas. That's it.
Just okay, fine. But I mean, LaMarcus Aldridge isn't no slouch.
No, Portland's good. Portland's good.
But when you look at the probability of finals, we joked about this, myself and Tony Powell. There was a year when I think the Hawks were the 3rd seed, and they were playing in the 2nd round. I think they were tied 1 or something. And Tony Powell goes, "Are you ready for an Atlanta Hawks Memphis Grizzlies finals?" Like there are some permutations of finals you just don't want to see.
But here's the thing: does the league want to see Miami, LA, or Miami, San Antonio? The league wants to see Miami, LA. There's no question.
I think either one has an interesting storyline.
But does the league want to see the second largest television market in the country, or the 35th largest television market in the country?
No. I'm with you. But the Heat and the Spurs had one of the great finals in NBA history.
That's true.
That's a nice consolation prize.
No, that's true.
It's the Clippers because of
it was last year.
Yeah. Here's a real question. What odds makers like ESPN would do? What are the odds you're giving for who makes the NBA Finals out of the East?
Out of the East or the West?
East first. You give Atlanta what % chance? So let's assume they win. Atlanta gets what % chance of making the NBA Finals?
Out of 100?
Yep.
Assuming they win their first series?
Yep. And they play the Wizards, obviously.
5.
What do you give the Raptors?
7.
The Wizards.
I think the Wizards may have the best chance. I might give them 10.
So that means you give Miami a 78% chance?
Yes.
Okay.
And that may be low. I may have undervalued them.
I give the Atlanta Hawks a 0% chance.
You don't even give them a 5% chance. That's low. That's low, and I'm the one, and everybody is always complaining about how I've buried the Hawks. Wow.
That's fine. That's right.
Wow.
No.
You're cold.
I will give the Toronto Raptors a 0% chance. I will give the Washington Wizards. I will give the Washington Wizards a 5% chance. And I'm giving
them. I agree on the relative odds, although I gave the Raptors a slightly better chance.
I couldn't get the Hawks less than -0, so there's nothing below that. The Miami Heat is a 95% chance.
You don't think the Hawks are actively trying to make the Heat win, which is what would have to happen?
Listen, I've said this since the Big Three kind of came together, and I will stick by it until I kind of see it occur. I need to see the Miami Heat lose. Not if they won a championship. I don't think there's a team that is currently up 3-2 or in the second round that could beat them 4 times.
I think you're right.
I think the 2 teams you were worried
there's always a possibility. That's what.
Really? Is that really a possibility? You're going with the Wizards?
Yes.
Really?
I gave him a 10% chance. That's not much of a possibility.
I gave him 5. But you know what though? In the West, you know who I'm giving the highest % chance to?
Who?
Clippers. I'm giving the Clippers a 40% chance.
A 40% chance? Oh, you mean out of the teams in the West? Out of the teams in the West of ending up in the finals?
Yeah. Yes. I got them at 40, the Spurs at 30, and what is that? 15-15 for Memphis and Portland.
I would give Portland a substantially better chance than Memphis, and maybe that's just because I haven't seen Memphis play enough. I just don't think they're that good.
I think it's because Portland. It's the matchup. I think Portland has to play the Spurs, who I think that's a worse matchup for Portland than maybe they both Memphis. Both Memphis and Portland have bad matchups in the next round.
No, that's true. All of the things that are plaguing OKC about Memphis are not true of the Clippers.
No.
Right? Like Oklahoma City has no one who can distribute the ball. Do the Clippers? I think there's someone. The person that the Hawks famously didn't draft when they had the opportunity.
I don't know.
Shout out to Billy Knight. Food poisoning.
Darren Williams doesn't play for the Clippers, Joe.
Billy Knight.
Yep.
Joel Lemuel, you got Mike D'Antoni fired.
He did.
Get Billy Knight food poisoning.
No, he can't. He doesn't run the name.
I don't want him permanently damaged. I just want several days of discomfort.
You didn't like the Joe Johnson max contract?
Cold. Ooh, that was the last straw. That was it. Yeah. That's what made me not a Hawks fan.
I think it was one of the 3-point shots.
They could have put up a billboard on the connector that said, "We're not trying to win," and it couldn't have been any clearer at that point that they were not trying to win.
Marvin Williams.
They could have put a big old sign in the backdrop of the Magic City that said, "We're not trying to win," and hired Lil Jon to come and be like, "We're not trying to win."
Fuck. Oh God. Oh,
sorry,
man.
Luke Floyd made me watch the Turn Down for What video the other day, and I'm still reeling.
Oh wow.
I'm still having trouble with it. It's still messing with my head.
Well, let's take a break before we talk about the NFL draft and I rant.
No, we're not even. I gotta go. We're not even talking about the NFL draft. I got one thing and one thing only to say.
Mm-hmm.
The beat writer for the AJC now says there's a legit rumor that Atlanta's gonna move up to draft Clowney.
Hold on. Wait. For all my people at Bank of America that just seen the John Wall the bruh moment. Here it is, bruh. That really?
Oh yeah. How long ago was it that he was like, "Hey, are the Falcons maybe gonna move up to draft Clowney?"
let me say this
No,
right
it's a smoke screen. It's a smoke screen.
God,
No,
no,
it will not
no.
happen. It's a smoke screen.
I swear to God, I would break this laptop if he talked like him.
Less than a month later. That's a
Oh,
legit rumor.
oh my fucking God.
Head on, apply directly to the forehead.
I'd rather hear Avery Johnson talk. God damn
Head
it.
on. I just
Oh,
want to win a championship for my Christian
no.
brother, David Robinson.
Why are we talking about this fucker? All right.
Dude, what? Oh.
All right, let me just say this. Let me just say this. Here are the following people I hate in no particular order. Roger Goodell for making the NFL draft into like the middle of the fucking summer.
My God.
Like, what the fuck? Number 2, the Atlanta Falcons ownership and GMs. Just make the fucking trade. Like, listen, you know how I feel about
You know what
Jadeveon Clowney.
Dimitrov said today? They're not even going to do anything until the draft starts. That was his
Shut
big.
the
That was
fuck
the big
up.
news from today.
Shut up. Now, I don't want to hear his mouth. I don't hear him talk about trades. I don't hear him talking about Clowney. I don't hear like we have interesting conversation with. Shut the fuck
There's a lot
up.
of good players in the top 10.
Eat a piece of bacon, motherfucker. Listen, look, shut up. Everyone, shut up. I am so sick of the NFL right now because we're in a dead period where nothing is happening, and there's only so
We're in the
many
Sargasso
times.
Sea of the NFL right now.
Listen,
We're
thank
getting
God
entangled
for
by seaweed.
thank God for Frank Caliendo doing Gruden on Gruden. That shit's hysterical.
Oh,
Yes.
oh,
Yes.
oh.
Yes. It was.
That's what you're
awesome.
thanking God for?
Yes. That was great because all these trade rumors and oh my God, I
This
can't.
is the part where like a devil should appear behind you and go, "Why this is hell, nor are we out of it." Shout out
Is
to
Donald
Thomas Marlowe.
Is Donna Sterling behind me or something? What the fuck?
Mephistopheles should pop up behind you and go,
Nice. If that happened, I mean, I go out with a bang, I suppose. But seriously, I'm so tired of dude. I am so tired of the NFL right now. Like everything to trade. Now the Bills are trying to trade up for the number 1 pick. Okay, fine. I don't care.
Bills?
I don't care. I really don't care anymore. I really don't. I can't take it anymore. I can't take every 2 hours someone is like trying to get. And listen, Dimitrov is not finna say yes. We are trying to trade up for Jadeveon Clowney.
Yeah, I can't believe people ask him that. I can't believe people ask
What
him the
the
question at
fuck?
a press conference. Mr. Dimitrov, are you actually going to trade up? Could you announce right here and now that you're going to trade up to get Clowney? What's he going to say?
Not that dumb.
That's a clown question.
Clown
That's
question,
a
bro.
clown question, bro.
Seriously.
Bro,
Seriously.
what are you people doing? How much do you get paid? I can do your job in my spare time. I can make things up too. I can ask dumb questions with the best of them.
We do this shit all day, every day.
That's right. How do you shave that little thing at the end of your chin, Mr. Dimitrov?
Mr. Dimitrov, have you ever
Do you use a vegan shaving cream, Mr. Dimitrov?
Now, wait a minute. That's a really good question, actually.
I get paid the large dollars to come up with that stuff. I just did that just now. That was the magic. That was the magic happening right there.
Mr. Dimitrov, have you ever considered growing an afro? Missed all points, the crazy question edition.
That's why Dimitrov need to come on the podcast. Where else would you get these questions?
I don't know. Dimitrov can do the podcast in my living room.
We have to have banned words too, banned phrases. No one on the Falcons staff can ever come on the show and say no doubt about it. That's their answer to everything.
Oh, no.
Coach Smith, have y'all thought about throwing more screen passes this year? No doubt about it. No, electrocute you every time you say that.
Let's just say this out. The only interesting take that I thought Dimitrov had, which kind of, if you juxtapose it with what Bill Polian said in a conversation with, I think, the Falcon beat writer, they asked him a question about the Julio Jones deal and trading up and why, it's kind of a boneheaded move. And Polian was like, yeah, those people are idiots. He was like, people who want depth want a bunch of backups. And if you have a chance to get a superstar and a star, you get him. You do not mess around and get backups and depth because those people never play in a perfect world. So you get the guys who can sack the quarterback, score touchdowns, throw touchdowns, protect your quarterback. You do not worry about depth. That comes later. That is what scouting is for. And then Dimitrov essentially echoed those exact sentiments when he said, I have no issue with the Julio. No one should have an issue with the Julio Jones deal because no one can name any player that was traded for or that was picked using the picks the Falcons made that is still on the NFL roster. Literally, I think 4 or 5 of them are not on the NFL roster.
Mm. Yeah, and you could always go back and cherry pick what was conceivably available, but that's ridiculous. All right. Well, this has been fun. We're gonna have to talk more about this stuff, but we'll have to see what happens with the Sterling stuff going forward. I'm fascinated. Actually, I'm fascinated now by the questions you were asking about how the actual sale gets handled. So
the only issue now is how the sale gets handled, but we'll talk more about this. We felt it was important to kind of get the kind of podcast out. Normally, we'll be back to our jovial, joking selves, but Jameis Winston, what the fuck?
Not surprised. Not surprised. If y'all haven't seen the stuff about how that investigation was botched and what was probably going on there, you should. It's disgraceful.
My dude should just order from Burger Joy. What the hell?
I hear they have egg rolls and burgers. Maybe you can order with egg roll on top of it. That's fusion cuisine right there, man.
Done. Calling now. Burger Joy. Oh my burger. Egg Foo Young burger.
That's copyright. That's copyright, y'all. Copyright. Miss on Points podcast. That's a Miss on Points burger right there, y'all.
Absolutely. Okay, copyright. I do not want to see a double cheese egg roll burger on anyone's menu. Otherwise, you're paying us, bitch.
Oh, nice. All right, y'all. That's the podcast. We'll be seeing y'all later. Neil Blackman, when you gonna come on the podcast? Y'all was saying you're gonna come on the podcast.
Blackman, you screwed the Braves, man. What the hell?
Stop going to Braves games. Why?
Hanging out with your Christian brother, David Robinson.
You go to the Braves game, we get hammered by the Marlins. Come on the podcast.
Really?
All right, we're out.
Peace.